There is a specific kind of silence that settles over the All England club just before a tectonic shift occurs. It is the quiet of a crowd that knows it is about to witness something historic, yet cannot quite put its finger on why the air feels so heavy. On center court, something is brewing that defies the logic of the rankings and the weight of tradition. For those who track the movement of the stars in this sport, the warning signs haven't just been visible, they have been screaming. But in tennis, as in life, we often ignore the sirens until the floodwaters are at the door. To understand the gravity of the collision about to take place, you have to look back exactly 48 hours. You have to look toward a side court, far from the prestige of the show courts, where a 21-year-old woman walked onto the grass carrying a burden that would have crushed a lesser athlete. For Alex, this wasn't just another match in a tournament draw. She was walking into the teeth of a memory that had haunted her for an entire calendar year. 12 months ago, on this very grass, Alex sat in a locker room and tried to process a loss that felt more like an extraction. It was a final that slipped away in a deciding set tiebreak. The kind of scoreline that doesn't just go into a record book. It lodges itself behind your ribs. It stays there, vibrating every time you pick up a racket. Alex herself admitted, in the quiet, guarded way she handles her public life, that she couldn't bring herself to watch the highlights for months. Some losses are lessons. This one was a wound. But 2 days ago, that wound became a weapon. Standing across the net from her was Maya, a player who arrived in that match riding a wave of momentum that felt like destiny. Maya had just done the unthinkable. She had defeated Serena Williams. And this wasn't the version of Serena often described as faded or ceremonial. This was a Serena who had the entire tennis world holding its collective breath, a legend who looked like she might just have one final impossible chapter to write. Maya ended that fairy tale. She walked onto the court against Alex carrying every ounce of that borrowed belief, that raw adrenaline that comes from toppling a titan. For a moment, it looked like the ghost of the previous year was going to win again. Maya broke serve early. She dictated the rallies with a clinical, almost cruel efficiency. She took the first set 6-3, and if you were watching the body language, you could see the narrative being written in real time. The pressure was too much. The stage was too big. Here was a young woman about to learn the hardest lesson tennis has to teach, that sometimes your best isn't enough to overcome your past. Then came the changeover. The cameras couldn't capture the internal recalibration happening in Alex's mind, but the results were undeniable. Something that had been building for 365 days finally reached its boiling point. Alex didn't panic. She didn't lash out. She did something far more dangerous. She simplified. She stopped reacting to Maya's rhythm and began imposing her own aggressive geometry on the court. She started taking the ball earlier, stepping inside the baseline, and coming forward with a frequency that bordered on the revolutionary. The second set vanished in a blur, 6-2 for Alex. But it was the third set where the sport of tennis transitioned into something closer to a manifesto, 6-0. A bagel delivered on the hallowed grass of Wimbledon against a woman who just 3 days prior had sent a legend into retirement. This wasn't just a tactical victory, it was an exorcism. It was Alex reaching back into the past, grabbing the version of herself that couldn't watch her own replays, and finally letting her rest. The source of this newfound steel might be found in a detail most observers would miss. Stitched into the brim of Alex's white visor long before she ever set foot on the grass this season is a phrase in Tagalog. Translated, it reads, "Once it grows, it cannot be stopped." It isn't there for the cameras or a sponsor. It is a private reminder of who she is and what she carries. Alex has spoken about the weight of carrying her culture and her country onto the court, a clarity of purpose that cannot be coached. You either have it or you don't. And right now, Alex has it in abundance. With a Birmingham title already in her pocket and back-to-back top 10 wins in Berlin over Elena Rybakina and Alina Svitolina, she isn't just a rising star. She is a storm. Now that storm is about to collide with a name that carries more weight than perhaps any other in the modern game, the defending champion. On paper, this is the point where the underdog story is supposed to end. You don't beat a 6-time Grand Slam champion, the woman who held this exact trophy 12 months ago, with momentum alone. But 2026 has been a year of strange shadows and unsettling results for the woman at the top of the mountain. If you look closely at her season, the picture of dominance begins to fracture. The unraveling began in Miami. It was a match she should have won in her sleep, yet she lost her opening round from a setup against Magda Linette. For a player of her caliber, such a result was unthinkable. Within days, the foundation of her team shifted. She split with her longtime coach, Wim Fissette, seeking a stabilizer in Francisco Roig, the man who once helped steer the career of Rafael Nadal. The hope was that a new perspective would steady the ship before the clay court season, the surface where she has historically been untouchable. It didn't happen, not the way it was supposed to. She fell to Rybakina in the quarterfinals of the Australian Open. She lost to Mira Andreeva in Stuttgart. Then came the true low point, Madrid. She retired mid-match in tears during the third round against an unseeded American. Her body simply gave out. She later revealed it was a virus, dizziness, blurred vision, a total loss of stability. It was only the third retirement of her legendary career, but it signaled something deeper, a vulnerability that the rest of the tour began to scent. Then came the most shocking development of all, Roland Garros, her fortress, the place where she has lifted the trophy 4 times. For years, she operated on the red clay of Paris in a tier of her own, a level of excellence that literally no one else on tour could touch. And yet, she lost in the 4th round. She didn't just lose, she was taken apart in straight sets by a player who, on paper, had no business being in the same zip code as her. Her grass court tune-up in Bad Homburg offered no sanctuary. Another opening round loss, her second straight defeat to the same American opponent. She arrived at Wimbledon still searching for her first title of the year, a drought that would be a career for most, but is a crisis for a champion. Her first-round match at the All England Club was a microcosm of her entire season, a dominant first set followed by a complete disappearance in the second and a desperate, clawing struggle to survive into the third. For a woman who has spent her career as the most composed presence in the sport, that kind of inconsistency isn't just a technical flaw. It's a sign that the pressure has stopped being an abstract concept and has become a physical weight sitting on her shoulders. So we arrive at the third round, and the question isn't whether the champion is dangerous. She is a 6-time major winner. That kind of pedigree doesn't evaporate overnight. The question is, which version of her will walk through those gates? Will it be the champion who has been unraveling under the glare of expectation all year, or the legend who has made a career out of finding her best tennis precisely when the world is ready to write her obituary? What makes this story truly fascinating is that these two have a history. 15 months ago, in the quarterfinals of Miami, when Alex was still largely an unknown quantity on the big stage, she did the impossible. She beat the woman who would go on to win Wimbledon that year, 6-2, 7-5. She didn't win by luck. She won by standing inside the baseline and refusing to let the champion dictate the terms of engagement. A month later, on the clay of Madrid, the champion struck back, winning a grueling 3-set battle, 1 win apiece, 1 on hard court, 1 on clay. And now, for the first time, they meet on grass. This is where the physics of the game become the primary narrator. Grass does not distribute its favors equally. The champion's greatest weapon has always been her forehand, a shot loaded with heavy, violent topspin that kicks up high and steals an opponent's time. On clay, that shot is a death sentence. But on grass, the ball behaves differently. The bounce stays low. The kick flattens out. The champion is forced to change her entire identity. She has to flatten her shots. She has to lean on her serve as a stabilizer, and she has to find a rhythm on a surface that inherently disrupts it. In their head-to-head history, a startling statistic emerges. Alex has actually been the more effective returner of the champion's second serve than the champion has been of hers. It is a razor-thin margin, but on grass, razor-thin margins are the difference between a trophy and a flight home. Alex's game is built for this surface. She hits flat, piercing shots that demand split-second timing. She is left-handed, creating an awkward, skidding angle on her serve that jams right-handed opponents. Most importantly, she has become aggressive at the net. Those serve and volley sequences we saw against Maya weren't a fluke. They were a calculated strike against baseline players who thrive on long, controlled rallies. However, we must pause before we crown the underdog. To write off a 6-time Grand Slam champion is a fool's errand. She is still ranked inside the world's top 4. She has openly acknowledged that Alex's game is tricky because it denies her rhythm. She knows she is in for a fight. She has walked through the fire before and come out the other side with silverware. But there is a final factor that the rankings cannot account for: the atmosphere. This is the first time in the Open era that a Filipina has reached the third round of a major singles draw. This is uncharted territory not just for Alex, but for the sport. The Filipino community in the United Kingdom has turned Alex's matches into something the All England Club has never seen. There are flags in every corner. There are chants that rise and fall with the rhythm of the rallies. If Alex breaks early, if she pulls that crowd into the match, the psychological weight on the other side of the net will become almost impossible to ignore. As the players take the court, watch three things. First, look at where Alex stands to return the serve. If she is inside the baseline, attacking the ball before it has a chance to breathe, her confidence is where it needs to be. If she backs off, the occasion might be winning the mental battle. Second, watch the depth of the champion's forehand. If she is pinning Alex back, she is in control. If those balls are landing short, they are invitations for Alex to end the point. Finally, watch the second serve if this match goes deep into a third set. The champion's struggle in tight moments has been the defining story of her 2026 season. The numbers, the form lines, and the history all point to one conclusion: this match is dangerously open. It isn't just a good story or a moment of hope for an underdog, it is a collision built on cold, specific evidence. A year ago, Alex couldn't watch herself lose. Today, she is carrying that memory as fuel. She is wearing 4 words in her own language that promise that once something starts growing, nothing can stop it. Whether that promise can survive the loudest pressure of her life is something we are all about to find out. The warning signs were there. Now the match begins.